Hello and welcome back to the Real Music Talks. Today's guest is Caitlin Mae, a country singer from Caerphilly. How you doing, Caitlin?
Hey, I'm doing really well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on today.
No problem. It's an absolute pleasure. So for people that have never heard of you before, how would you describe yourself as an artist and as a musician?
So I am a country singer from Caerphilly, but I am manifest in Nashville. I would love to be there right now. That would be so cool. Um, I would probably describe myself and my style as very storyteller. I love to tell stories in my lyrics, and I think that is a huge aspect to country music. And I just think it's awesome that lately we're seeing a lot more modern country music. And I absolutely love the legends like Dolly Parton, but I think it's so great to see younger generations kind of immersing themselves in country music and taking the country music world by storm.
How did that start for you, like getting into country music? So I guess before that, when was your first musical experience? And then like how did you get into country from there?
So I always put my country roots down to the fact that we had a holiday home in Florida, and I was two when my parents purchased the villa. So from a very young age, we would spend time in America. We would holiday there once a year. And one time, I think, no, not one time, a few times we went out for a whole month. So that was absolutely incredible. And I do put those experiences down to kind of encouraging me down a country route. And I think I kind of always had that tone and twang to my vocals, and it wasn't something that I had to put on. It was just something that I learned from listening to the radio in the car in America, and it was all very country, very country, a lot of modern things. And I mean, when I always say when we did like trivia in school, pop trivia and things like that, people would all know these artists who were in the top 40. And I used to be like, I feel like a fraud. I'm a singer and I don't know who these pop artists are, but I could tell you all the country artists. Um, so that definitely got me into it. And it did take me a while to find a country music community in the UK. But once I found them, which was funnily enough in lockdown, it was just such a supportive community, and I was welcomed in straight away, and they are like a family to me now.
How did you go about discovering that community in the UK? And how did that develop?
I think for me, even though lockdown and the pandemic has been an awful time and none of us would have wished for it to happen, I tried to find the positives throughout it all. And one of them was the fact that moving online to be able to keep a career alive um, without being able to perform live, moving online allowed me to find these incredible organizations who also moved on heavily online, and they held live streams and they held events, and all of these were virtual. So some of the ones that I've done have been, in America, and I may never have got the opportunity to, one, discover them, but two, perform there at this early stage in my career, because I would have been in the UK. We wouldn't have been anywhere near each other. It would have been, I'm not going to say impossible because nothing's impossible, but it would have been difficult. So, in a way, I've come across so many incredible organizations and just individuals who I would honestly not want, I wouldn't want to change it for the world. I've just been really lucky to meet such awesome people.
So it's clear like the interest in country music was there. Like, how did you develop as like a songwriter, and how did you get into singing and playing?
So, I think when I first started songwriting, it was pretty much hearing other songs that I liked and putting words to a melody that I'd already heard, or put in writing somebody else's lyrics down that I'd heard on the Disney Channel or something, and saying, "Mum, I wrote a song," and I hadn't written a song. But I think like everybody starts somewhere, and when you're young, it's hard to imagine that in a few years or in the future you would have developed so much. I think it's just really hard to grasp when you're young, especially for some people who've always known that that's their passion and that's the direction they want to go in, sometimes you want things to happen so fast, and you're so young that it's not your time, and it's gonna come, it's gonna develop, but you have to be patient, which is not my strong suit. So that was kind of where the songwriting journey started, and it's just been a totally wild journey from there. And I feel like I'm so far from the starting point, and I am really grateful for my experiences and inspirations because they all were a part of my songwriting development. And I like to write based on true stories, and my debut EP Perspective, which came out in July, was based on it was written from experience, and it was about my relationship with my older sister growing up. So I do like to take inspiration from true events for my songwriting.
That makes sense. So thinking about that, what was your upbringing like, outside of music? You know, like what was school life like? What was home life like? Be interesting to hear like how that's kind of fed into your influences and how you write songs.
Yeah. So I think home life, it is a little bit tricky to describe and explain because I had a really rocky relationship with my sister. I think she was 16 when I was born, so she's a lot older than me. And it was never a good relationship. She, I think, feels that she never developed a connection towards me. And no matter how much I loved her, and it sounds really crazy, but I almost worshipped her. And in a way, that wasn't a good thing for our relationship, because the more I craved her love and her approval, the more she didn't want to offer it to me. So that was really difficult, and it was really emotional. But my parents have been an absolutely incredible support system and have always been there for me and supported my dreams and driven me everywhere, and just being there with me every step of the way. So I wouldn't change a thing, even if I could go back and change the relationship with my sister, if that meant losing the support system that I have had, through my parents. I wouldn't for a second want to change a thing, because I am so grateful for everything my parents do and for how much they love me and how much I love them. And I also have a younger brother. He's 2 years younger than me, and he's incredible. We've always had an amazing relationship, and even my extended family, we're really close, and I love all of them. And they all inspire me because they're such amazing people. So that was my home life, a little bit complicated, but whose isn't? And school life was good up until comprehensive. So I always looked forward to going to high school, going to comprehensive school. And when I got there, I realized that I had been wishing on stars for something that was not meant to be. And when I joined, I started to be bullied really, really severely, and it just progressively got worse up until I was in year 10, and my parents one day just said, enough is enough. We're taking you out and you're never going back. And that was, I think, a huge shock to my system, because I knew I was being badly treated there, but I never thought, it was hard to grasp that I was never going to go back, and that I was going to be homeschooled, and that if I wanted to get the grades and the results that my peers were lucky enough to get, because they were still being taught in school, I was going to have to work really hard and teach myself. But I did do it, and I think things like that, I hope, develop character, and maybe I wouldn't be the person that I am today if none of those things leading up to where I am now had happened. So I am grateful for my experiences, even if they were negative at the time, because you never know how it's going to change you and change the course of your life. And maybe it was for the better in the long run.
It's interesting to hear you talk about it because it's great that you've got such a positive attitude and you can see how it's like influenced you over time. How does it kind of play into your songwriting? Where do you kind of draw influence from when you write songs?
I love to draw inspiration and influence from everyday life. So I always try to draw positives from, you know, anything. It could be walking outside and seeing a beautiful, you know, flower. And it could, I know that sounds really, really cheesy, but I just think all we need to do is be aware of our surroundings to realize how beautiful the world is and how lucky we are to, you know, be who we are, because everybody is their own individual self and we're all unique. And it's really important to tell your story, and that's everybody. And I think songwriting and, you know, poetry and just being able to express yourself through words and through melodies is really special. So I draw inspiration from absolutely everything. But one of my songs, which was connected to an experience related to school, is called Are You Lonely Now? And I haven't released it yet, but I do play it at festivals and on live streams. And I wrote it on guitar because I learned guitar in lockdown. And I don't think I fully opened up about this experience in particular because there are so many experiences to write about. But it's about losing my best friend. And for me, the worst part was that I lost her. That sounds as if, you know, it wasn't her choice, but it was. It was a choice she made. And it's even worse sometimes when you know they're still here, they just don't want to be a part of your life. And so that was a really hard thing for me to go through. And Are You Lonely Now? That song developed, I think, from the hurt. But I do think that sometimes those things are meant to happen to you because you are strong enough to deal with them, and hopefully they're going to help somebody else who's going through something similar.
And I guess for you as an artist, it just makes you like really relatable. What's your relationship with your fans like and the community you create?
I absolutely love everybody that I've met along the way and I've met online since the pandemic, because my first song was called The Dream. My debut single was called The Dream. And so anybody who listens to my music and follows my journey and is on the journey with me, they're called the Dreamers, which I just felt was so right. And I just felt that we had to create this community together. And they're absolutely incredible, and they seriously are there every step of the way. And I think sometimes looking back at relationships that I've lost with some people, at the time I felt that they were crucial relationships, and I realized that actually the people I've met since have more than made up for those losses, and they are just incredible people that I would never want to lose and I'll always want in my life, and they'll always hold a special place in my heart. And to me they are like extended family.
I love that. I think that's like a really great approach to like actually having genuine connection with your fans. You know, it's not a case of them just being numbers. Like they actually mean a lot to you.
They do, yeah.
And I think that's really important. So like I guess going down that angle, what's kind of your relationship with social media, and do you have like a manager? Like what does the promotional process look like for you?
I guess you could say I have a momager because my mum is so supportive and I always run things by her, because I think it's I know a lot of people say they learn from their mistakes and it's really hard to do, but I've always said to myself, I strive to learn from other people's mistakes. Hopefully I don't need to make them myself. And you know, sometimes you do along the way, you're inevitably going to do things that later on you think wasn't the right decision. But I always try to run things past my mum and dad because they are supportive and they have my best interest at heart. And so I just like to take advice from them. And I think it makes you feel safe and secure not to be doing this on your own and not to feel isolated.
Yeah, I completely agree that having a support network is kind of vital. Um,
Yeah.
and it's great you've got that support from your parents, you know, because some parents, you know, they won't necessarily support you being a musician, you know, like if you're
Yeah.
trying to sort of earn money and, you know, have a house and everything like that. I mean, you're a little bit young, I guess, to be thinking about that stuff. But does that kind of thing like cross your mind? Like, how do you kind of approach the long-term game of like a career in the music industry?
Yeah. So I think that it's such an ever-changing game, and I think back about certain, incredible legends in the music industry who have made it, and in their time, because things are changing so quickly, they really hit a jackpot. And now the goalposts, they change constantly, and especially with the development of social media, it can be such an awesome place to reach out and connect with people, but it can also be a really brutal place. And so I just think, when I think about the future, I think, my future in a week in my mind could look a lot different than it does today, because things are constantly changing. But I am very music focused. I have always been. So sometimes, my friends, this was years ago, probably when I was still in school, they'd, be going out with each other and spending every day after school together and missing homework assignments because they're just having so much fun. And if I ever missed a homework assignment, it was because I was writing a new song, or I felt that something would further my music and where I wanted to go. So I was always just so focused on still what I'm focused on today. And I think in a way, a lot of young people kind of think, I want to be an influencer, or I guess that's more of a much more modern thing. I didn't really know what an influencer was when I was, in primary school, just because social media has become so much bigger since then. But people do say they want to be an influencer, or they want to be like a famous singer or actress or football player, and they grow out of it. And I think my parents, when I was younger, probably thought, yeah, that's just normal. It's a phase. I have still not outgrown that phase, and I plan to never grow out of that phase. I remember one time being told by a teacher in school, who I always thought, people in school would be a support system or another support system. I was told to choose a plan B because she wanted to be a singer herself, and she ended up being a teacher. And I said, that's why, because if you give up on yourself, then other people will too. You need to believe in yourself for others to believe in you, because if you don't even have the belief in yourself, you can't go, you can't go as far as you need to go for that kind of career. It's brutal, but you need to just be willing to get up, dust yourself off, and try again.
I think that's a really great attitude to have. Um, so I think, you're a very positive person. So maybe should we talk about like some of the hard times you've been through and maybe some of the challenges you faced so far?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the biggest challenges for me has been this, I say, rocky relationship. I don't know how to put into words how awful it was and how awful it still is. It's just that I think as you grow older, you learn to kind of have this box in the back of your mind that you put all the bad experiences into, and you shut the box and you lock it and you throw away the key. Because if you always focus on those bad experiences and those negative times in your life, then it's really hard to move forward, because they are things that hold you back. And even though I like to use those experiences to fuel ideas for songs, I don't like to dwell on them, because it's really hard, and we all need to take care of our mental health. And we learn more and more about that now, how it's just as important as your physical health. And sometimes your physical health can go downhill because of your mental health. And I don't want circumstance to be the reason that I'm held back. And I want those people who maybe didn't treat me well, or treat me how I think everybody should be deserved, I want them to one day regret it, not because I made them, but because I lived my life and it turned out amazingly well. And maybe if they fueled, their lives with positivity, they could be there as well. And I just think that, the best success is if you're happy. And I I don't wish bad on anybody, but people who make others feel like they're worthless, I think it's important for them to see the people who they made feel that way get what they finally deserve, and hopefully they find happiness and they find success in whatever form that is. And hopefully one day, and not too far in the future, they're at the top of their game, and yeah, those people regret it.
Completely agree. No, that all makes sense. So taking it back to music a little bit, obviously you released your EP this year.
Yeah.
What was that recording process like, and how did you kind of um, add all the different layers, etc., like all the different instruments?
Yeah. So, because that was, even though I've written a lot of songs and I've got quite a hefty back catalogue, those were the first 4 songs in the EP that I released that were true stories and were very personal to me. And so, for me, creatively, the difference in the process, especially in the studio for those songs, was, I think, the emotional difference, because it was very emotional recording songs that are so authentic, and whenever you sing the words you feel like you're telling your story all over again. And it took me a long time to be able to talk about my relationship with my sister without crying, let alone sing. So I think there was a lot of growth in being able to write those songs, and I finally freed some of those demons that were taking up so much space and so much of my time and energy. So a big process in the studio was realizing how emotional it was to record those songs, and also realizing that if you're a perfectionist, it's going to be even harder when you want those songs to be so, I think, just tell the story exactly the right way. Sometimes you can write a song, and because it's so personal, what you write and what you sing doesn't actually come across how you feel or how you felt when you wrote it. So I just really went through everything with a fine tooth comb to make sure that when people heard it, it was exactly how I felt. So it was hard emotionally, but it was so freeing, and I'm just really glad that I did it, and I wanted to share that experience with the people and the dreamers that I've met along the way, who have been so incredible. And instrumentally, within the instruments, my producer Al Steele in Shabby Road, he has just been incredible. He's such an awesome musician, and he can play a lot of the instruments himself, because I did only learn to play acoustically in lockdown. So I wanted it to be perfect, or as close to perfect as I could get it. And I knew that if I played myself, it may hold it back at the place where I am at the moment, in my guitar learning journey. So I really did put my faith in Al to put the instruments down, but we did talk a lot about exactly what I wanted, instruments wise, and I'm just really happy with the results.
No, it sounded really good. I really enjoyed listening to it.
Thank
Um,
you.
so we're nearly out of time now, actually. It's flown by. But what's kind of the plans for the future? And then the second question will be, is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with?
Is there any, sorry, you broke up then.
Sorry. So the first question would be like, what's your plans for the future?
Yeah.
And then it's an open slate, so anything else you'd like to leave the audience with?
Oh, okay. So my plans for the future, I think if you're going to dream at all, you should dream big. And my big aspirations are to move to Nashville permanently and to pursue music out there, and hopefully to reach the masses. That's my biggest dream. I want to be able to be what Taylor Swift was for me growing up, and so many other children and, young adults. I want to be that for other people, and I want to inspire through my lyrics, and for those songs and lyrics to mean something, because I think we all deserve to leave a mark on this earth, and however we choose to do it, is awesome. But music has always been a direction I wanted to go in. And so I would just love to be able to do that forever and always, and to always feel that passion. That's the most important thing to me, is to never lose sight of my love for it. So I think I'll always write from experience and love to share those experiences with other people. And something that I would love to leave the audience with is my social media handles, which are Caitlin Mae Music across all social media. I set up a Patreon account during lockdown because my income stream kind of completely stopped, and it was getting more difficult to get in the studio and record new material. So that is a way for me to be able to fund the music, and because it's expensive. And yeah, I mean, my YouTube is Caitlin Mae or Caitlin Mae Music, whichever one. And I've got a few music videos on there, 3 at the moment. One was from my Christmas song, my first Christmas song that I released, called A Candle for Christmas. And the other 2 are from my debut EP, that's Take My Demons and Gasoline. So they, again, were very different to film from the Christmas video because they were true to life for me, whereas the Christmas song was a song that I wrote more, I was hoping, from other people's perspectives, because I know people have gone through hard times, and it's nice to be able to try or begin to try to put yourself in their shoes. I know it's hard to know exactly how people feel, but I think it's also nice when I listen to songs to feel recognized, even though it may not be the artist's experience. Sometimes I enjoy to listen to songs that I know resonate with me and that I feel that artist really just spent time trying to understand somebody else. So I wanted to try and begin to do that with A Candle for Christmas.
Perfect. Thanks very much for coming on the show today, Caitlin. It's been really good chatting.
Thank you so much for having me on.
No worries at all. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. Take care.